What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and once again for the news article that just refuses to go away. The story that refuses to die, folks. Oh, you know where it's going. Check this out. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is freed from Tennessee jail so he can rejoin family in Maryland to await trial. You know, I hope they throw the book at this dude. I really, really do, because this guy, I just don't understand what's going on. I don't understand quite why the Trump administration did not just leave this guy to rot in CCOT. I really don't. You know, the left, it was the proverbial sky was falling. The immigration sky was falling when they deported this guy. Rightly so. They love to say it was a mistaken deportation, but that is manipulation, folks. There was no mistaken deportation. This dude had his final orders of deportation. He exhausted all of his appeals. So, I'm sorry. At that point, you got to go. If the courts say you got to go, you got to go. I don't care that they made an administrative error and forgot to give you a USCIS interview. That was the mistake, by the way. Yes. They don't want to tell you that. As a matter of fact, every single news article that I've read refused to tell you that. They'll just say there was a mistake in deportation, as if to say that this guy was just picked up off the streets and shipped off to El Salvador, which is a blatant manipulation. It just is. But they don't actually tell you that, so they're not actually lying. The mistaken deportation, see, they are lying, actually, because when you say mistaken deportation, there's no other way to spin that except that they deported the wrong person. But that is a blatant lie. That's just not true. And we've gone over this several times. Just figured I'd remind you guys, and for anybody new to the channel, there you go. If you were thinking that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was deported by accident, he wasn't. No. He absolutely wasn't. I would ask that if you don't believe me, do your own research. You will come to the same place that I am. You might feel differently about it, but you will find all of the facts to be correct. Check this out, y'all. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released from jail in Tennessee on Friday so he can rejoin his family in Maryland while awaiting trial on human smuggling charges. Now, that's what they say. The new evidence surfaced. He was caught smuggling humans, smuggling criminal aliens all over the United States, so he's got to come back. We need accountability. And that, I think the Trump administration may have thought that this would, kind of poke the beehive a little bit of Democrats over here that were buzzing around about this issue, that it would piss them off. But, we do have deranged judges that are sitting on the bench. And apparently, deranged judges think that just because there's some social media campaign and the entirety of the corporate press is saying mistaken deportation, that they have to release this guy as to vindicate the left for their outcry, their outrageous lunacy, their psychopathy. It really is insane. They just don't want to be on the wrong side of history. But, the wrong side of history, yeah, that's a fascinating position, don't you think? Because just because you scream the loudest doesn't mean you're on the right side of history, Democrats. No, because when the facts lay themselves bare, you will find that, Democrats are generally in the wrong. The Salvadorian national's case became a flashpoint in President Donald Trump's immigration agenda after he was mistakenly deported in March. Facing a court order, the Trump administration brought him back to the U.S. in June, only to detain him on criminal charges. Now, once again, that would lead you to believe, see, this is once again the road to nowhere on this. They lead you down a path of destruction. That would make you think that the only reason the Trump administration brought him back was because the Supreme Court said, well, you should facilitate his return. But that's not why they brought him back, is it? No, but then they go on to tell you that, oh, they brought him back to face criminal charges. That's why they brought him back. It wasn't because of any court order. They threw that in there. What's called poisoning the well, by the way. That's what that was. The corporate press, they are experts in doing this. Although Abrego Garcia was deemed eligible for pretrial release, he had remained in jail at the request of his attorneys, who feared the Republican administration could try to immediately deport him again if he were freed. Those fears were somewhat allayed by a recent ruling in a separate case which requires immigration officials to allow Abrego Garcia time to mount a challenge to any deportation order. Yeah, once again, they're telling you half truths here, right? Sure, that case, that's true. Yeah, most deportation cases, they must go in and they have time to challenge the deportation or whatever. But that doesn't have anything to do with anybody that already has final orders of deportation. Oh, and if you remember from the beginning of the video, Kilmar Abrego Garcia just so happened to have his final orders of deportation. What does final mean? That means he got his orders of deportation, appealed that decision. It went to an appellate panel of 3 judges. And those 3 judges said, no, gotta go. There's your final order of deportation. So there is no more appeals. All of his avenues of appeal have been exhausted. So that case is completely irrelevant to this situation. So you might be thinking, well, why did the corporate press add that in here? Good one. I have no idea why they did. You know, the only thing I can think of is to kind of take you off of the trail of finding the truth. That's all it is. They are good at that, folks. They are supposed to be the truth bringers, the fact givers. But they're not. They're the chief manipulators. On Friday, after 2 months, Abrego Garcia walked out of the Putnam County Jail wearing a short-sleeve white button-down shirt and black pants. Why is it not a white button-up shirt? See, the corporate press, they're always into the negatives, right? Always trying to bring you down. It's a button-up shirt. Button-down shirt? Really? I know, that's semantic foolishness, if you will. And black pants, and accompanied by defense attorney Roscoe Dean and 2 other men. They did not speak to reporters, but got into a white SUV and sped off. Surprised they're not trying to throw some racism in there. The release order from the court requires Abrego Garcia to travel directly to Maryland, where he will be in home detention with his brother designated as his custodian. He is required to submit to electronic monitoring and can only leave the home for work, religious services, and other approved activities, which is pretty much ridiculous, if you ask me. An attorney for Abrego Garcia in his deportation case in Maryland, Simon Sandoval Mosenberg, said in a statement Friday his client has been reunited with his loving family for the first time since he was wrongfully deported to a notorious El Salvadorian prison in March. Oh, his loving family, huh? Oh, the family that he loves to beat on, to smash in the face, mercilessly punch on. That's who he loves. That's what he loves to do. That's a nice statement from his lawyer. While his release brings some relief, we all know that he is far from safe, Sandoval Mosenberg said. ICE detention or deportation to an unknown third country still threaten to tear his family apart. No, we can just deport him back to El Salvador. That's not a third country. There is nothing wrong. There's nothing stopping them. You might think, well, maybe you've looked into this a little bit, or maybe you just take the corporate press narrative and don't actually do your research and think that they just told you the truth, that he can't be deported to El Salvador. Well, that's just not true. Once again, facts that the corporate press leave out. See, this was the whole reason for the USCIS interview in the first place. They were going to sit him down and let him know that, hey, see this reason you gave? Oh, fear of retaliation from gangs in El Salvador? Well, you know what? The El Salvadorian people were tired of the gangs, and they voted in, through democratic means, a new president that cracked down on these gangs. And those gangs that you were in fear of no longer exist in El Salvador. So, therefore, that threat from retaliation from these gangs no longer exists, making the order, the stay of deportation, that kept him in the United States and prevented him from being deported to El Salvador no longer exist. Boom. You're going back to El Salvador. That was the whole reason for the USCIS interview. So, anybody that says he can't be deported to El Salvador, that is not true, folks. That is the whole reason he was deported to El Salvador in the first place. But they don't tell you these things. They leave all this out. Abrego Garcia has pled not guilty to the smuggling charges, which stem from a 2022 traffic stop in Tennessee for speeding. Body camera footage from a Tennessee Highway Patrol officer show a calm exchange with Abrego Garcia. There were 9 passengers in the car, and the officers discussed among themselves their suspicions of smuggling. However, Abrego Garcia was allowed to continue driving with only a warning. A Department of Homeland Security agent testified he did not begin investigating the traffic stop until this April, when the government was facing mounting pressure to return Abrego Garcia to the U.S. Hang on just a second. Once again, another smokescreen by the damn corporate press here. That was just so happened when that video surfaced, the body camera footage from that Tennessee Highway Patrol surfaced, nationwide at least. And that's when the investigator got a hold of that footage and was like, hang on just a second. You look at what's going on here. This dude was smuggling humans across the country, allegedly. So, what do we do about this? Well, hang on, Trump administration. You're on pretty good ties with El Salvador. Why don't you call up Bukele and say, hey, we need this guy back. We want to charge him with human smuggling. Maybe make an example out of him. Why not, you know? I mean, I think everybody that's caught and accused, or at least found guilty of human smuggling, should be made an example out of. Because that's some egregious nonsense right there, to smuggle humans. Whether it's against their will or not, doesn't matter. If you're smuggling humans, for crying out loud, that's an absurdity. It really is. But that's how that happened. It's not because they were facing mounting pressure. The Trump administration did not have to do anything. They didn't have to lift a single finger to bring back Abrego Garcia, because once again, the corporate press, they try to say, oh, well, the Supreme Court said facilitate his return, and the Trump administration defied that court order. That's not true. If you go through and read the court order, they also said that the Supreme Court cannot compel the administration to engage in foreign relations. Just can't. So there's nothing they could do. But maybe they should think about facilitating his return. It wasn't an order to bring him back. That's why they said facilitate his return. That means asking nicely. Bukele said no at the time. He said that on national television, world news, if you will. Although Abrego Garcia can't be deported to El Salvador without violating the judge's order, Homeland Security officials have said they plan to deport him to an unnamed third country. That's not true. None of that is true. None of that is true. Once again, folks, like I said, you go back, you look through all the court records. I've dug deep into this one right here, y'all. Dug deep into this one. You look through the court records. This is the reason he was deported in the first place. That was the reason for the USCIS interview. That was accidentally not done. Oops. He's an MS-13 gang member. Wife-beating MS-13 gang member. Like, they try to say, oh, well, he denies it. Wouldn't you deny that? Wouldn't anybody deny that if you were accused of being a gang member? Whether you are or not. Doesn't matter. You would deny it. That's not a defense. That is absolutely not a defense. And they say, oh, the evidence is shaky. Are you kidding me? Shaky? The dude was arrested with other known MS-13 gang members. One, that's one piece of evidence. Number two, he was wearing affiliate clothing, right? So you might think, oh, well, he was wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey. A lot of people have Chicago Bulls jersey. Yeah, but a lot of people don't get arrested with MS-13 gang members. Then you have the tattoos. That sews it up right there. That's tantamount to proof. It just is. Right? All three of those together. He's an MS-13 gang member. I'm sorry. There's no other way to shake it. There's also the informant testimony that actually put the claim out there that he was a Chicado or something like that. I forget the exact name of it. But basically, it was affiliated, but he wasn't fully vested into MS-13 just yet. But he was definitely a gang member. He hadn't committed his crime to get into the gang yet, right? That was the thing. So, yeah, I mean, he's working with them. He was arrested with them, wearing affiliate clothing. He's got the tattoos. Look, I'm sorry. You know, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, and looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. But, you know, Democrats or the corporate press, they would have you believe that it's a goose. It's a dove, for crying out loud. Absurdities on top of more absurdities. But I've rambled on for long enough. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Don't forget to smash that like button. You need to do it. Smash it. Subscribe. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And click that join button. You know you want to. And you guys, y'all remember that God, He's always with us. And He loves each and every one of you. So y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.